So I just read A Court of Sugar and Spice by Rebecca F. Kennedy. This is a spicy fantasy retelling of the Nutcracker Prince, and unfortunately for me, I missed the spicy part when I was picking up the book. So I thought I was getting a sweet holiday romance. That is not what this is. But before we get started, please give the subscriber button a kiss under the mistletoe and hit the bell to ring in the new year. It really does help me out, and talking about it now ensures that I have a nice, long, clean intro before I start talking about sugar plums and candy canes, so this video doesn't get demonetized. This is not spiked eggnog, by the way. It is just coffee, and anybody who tells you otherwise is going on the naughty list. A Court of Sugar and Spice follows the prescribed Sarah J. Maas formula. Two human sisters wind up in the Fae realm. They fall in love with two studly fairy men, both of whom are perfect specimens of virility, power, and beauty. The premise of the book is that these two sisters' father has died, and he has left them in the care of an inventor friend of his called Drosselmeyer, and he is to be their guardian until they either marry or turn 30, after which they will gather their inheritance and be independent. The girls have never met Drosselmeyer, and although he seems polite enough and everything seems to be fine, something's not quite right in his house. And we, as the readers, learn right away that Clara is shy and reserved and artistic, very prim and proper, and her sister Louisa is a sex-crazed maniac with boundary issues and zero impulse control. As I said, Drosselmeyer is an inventor, and his entire house is staffed by automatons, which are basically robots made out of wood and gears. Unfortunately, everything is not as it seems, and the girls discover that the robots are not really robots, they're people trapped inside these machines, and they accidentally manage to bring one of them to life. He says he's a prince of the Fae realm, specifically the Court of Delights, and he convinces the girls to help him escape Drosselmeyer and make his way back home, which of course they agree to because otherwise we wouldn't have a book. So the Nutcracker, Clara, and Louisa escape into the Fae realm. They jump through this portal with Drosselmeyer close at their heels, and immediately upon arriving in Fairy, they run into a pack of rats, which are minions of the Rat King, because, of course, while the prince has been away, the Rat King has been trying to take over the entire Fae realm. Upon the arrival of the rat soldiers, Drosselmeyer flees back through the portal and closes it behind himself, leaving the girls to fend for themselves. So the pair of them and the almost wooden prince manage to beat back the rat pack, but only barely, and they use these weapons that they gathered in Drosselmeyer's manor. And they realize, as they're sort of catching their breath and recovering from this big fight, that they need help. So the prince takes them to the house of the Sugar Plum Fairy, who is a big pink-haired stud muffin and also happens to be the prince's cousin. Once they secure the Sugar Plum Fairy's help, they set off to find this magic pool that they need to dip the wooden prince into in order for him to regain his true form and secure his powers, resecure his powers, and resecure his throne. And there's a lot of fighting, and there's a lot of magic, and it's this sort of rollicking, romping adventure through the Fae realm with all of the characters that you would expect, and feasts and festivals, and of course, it's a spicy book, so the accompanying orgies that go with those. And as you've probably gathered already, there is a lot of sex in this book. Like, a lot. And let me just say right up front, I do enjoy romance. I don't mind on-page sex. I tend to prefer it to be a little more subtle. This book is not subtle. There are C's and P's all over the place, and throbbing members, and pulsing veins, and plunging fingers, and food play, and that... I consider myself pretty open-minded. I draw the line at food play. It really squicks me out. I have no excuses for myself. It's just one of those things that just does not work for me. So yeah, there's some things in this book that I didn't like, particularly the sex scenes. I wasn't into them, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad book. It just means it wasn't to my taste. I will say that despite the language in the sex scenes being explicit, I found it all to be relatively tame. There are some allusions to some darker things or some threats of some darker things happening, but everything that the characters actually participate in is consensual, and although some of it's a little risque, I think it's all pretty vanilla. Obviously, everybody's tastes are different, and everybody's threshold for that sort of thing is different, so if you're really sensitive to that sort of thing, make sure that you hit up the trigger warnings or the content warnings in the front of the book. I thought that it was pretty tame, So that's a good thing, I guess, if you're into that. I wanted to make sure that I got the sex talk out of the way before I started talking about the story, because I think it's important to note that although the book is very smutty, it does not neglect the story for the smut or in favor of the smut. There is an actual story here with actual characters and actual character arcs. There's actually growth and change. There's an adventure and a lot of cool magic. And for the story itself, disregarding the fact that I wasn't a fan of the way that the smut was written, I thought the story was fun. The way that the Fae realm was written was sort of alluring and dark, which is exactly the way that you would want it to be. The way that they described things were both colorful and eerie. It was kind of reminiscent of the chocolate room in Willy Wonka's factory, where it's both delicious and deadly. Overall, I thought the explanations for the way that the world worked and the way that magic worked, how magic could be used, what it could be used for, how much it could be used, and then sort of what other tasks had to be done in more mundane ways, that all really worked for me. I also enjoyed the characters more than I expected. Clara was fine. And the Nutcracker Prince was fine. I actively disliked Louisa at the beginning. Her very first scene, like the second thing out of her mouth, is overtly sexual in a really raunchy sort of way, and that will make me dislike a character just because I find it, I wouldn't say offensive. Offensive isn't the right word, but it grates on me. It's too blunt. But Louisa had a lot of self-realization and a lot of character growth over the book, and she was actually bearable by the end, which is a big step from, oh my god, I can't stand this character. And I genuinely loved the way that the Sugar Plum Fairy was written. He was fun and effeminate and somehow also really virile and masculine when he needed to be, which is an odd balance to strike, and somehow she did it really well. I liked the contrast between his sort of fluffy pink hair and his candy-based magic versus how dangerous and deadly he was. I thought that that was a really nice contrast, and I thought that the character was really fun, and the author did a great job with him. Overall, if you're into this kind of book, or even if you aren't and you don't mind a little explicit sex, okay, a lot of explicit sex, you might enjoy this book. I had a lot more fun with it than I was expecting to. So yeah, I guess I recommend it if this is your kind of thing. That'll be my last book review of the year. Merry Christmas, you guys, and have a happy new year. I will see you in 2024. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and of course, if you like the way that I present information, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below. You can find all of my social media contacts in the description. And of course, if you want to keep up with me and the progress I'm making on my current novel, you can do that at effywritesbooks.com. Thank you so much for watching, have an excellent day, and I'll see you next time.